Second burn. This time more wood. Getting the temperatures hotter. Still smoke free. Using the smaller concrete block as the door. Just started it maybe 5-7 minutes ago. This time I'm using big pieces of oak. Should be a lot hotter. First burn, I basically just used sticks. Probably 8 to 10 minutes since I started it. Good news is there's really no or not much smoke coming out of the door when you open it. A wood stove with a baffle that pushes everything forward. I mean, you can't open a wood stove with a baffle that pushes everything towards the glass when the fire's raging. It just blows smoke out into the room. Where, I mean, it comes out a little bit, but I mean, still, that's really pretty good. It's drafting the right way. What's pretty amazing is there's no mortar. I mean, for the test, if you're going to build this thing yourself, you'd want to mortar it. We'll talk about the options later, but I mean, there's no mortar under the barrel. I mean, there's really, there's no smoke escaping under the barrel. There's smoke escaping here. But that's the ceiling. I mean, the flames are blasting up into that ceiling. There's no smoke leaking out. Like when I make my fire brick stoves and I just stack them without any mortar, there's smoke that leaks all over the place. I mean, just the ceiling here. You almost could make this stove and like in an emergency stove situation or prep, you could almost like mortar it up later. Like after you stack it, by like packing, the cracks with certain things like mud or cob and things like, if you had to. It's not recommended, but the point is there's very little that comes out of the cracks compared to other stoves I've made. It's so smoke-free, it's like it's not even on. And you can see the heat ripples. Where's the secondary air, Matt? There isn't any. That's not possible without secondary air and all that other horse shit. Sure it is. High firebox, relatively thin firebox, keeps the heat contained. Everything laps up high, the flames. If you have it burning hot enough with the right amount of oxygen, the smoke is burned up. You don't need secondary air all the time. Prove to you it's even on. What's raging? And that's relatively new wood, so that wood is relatively smoky. Part of it there is not even burned. I mean, that's pretty darn good that it's smoke-free when the wood is not really even fully burning yet. I am surprised by this. I mean, I didn't expect a ton of smoke, but I didn't expect this. One of the keys to a smoke-free fire, or the hottest fire, is actually to regulate the air. More air is not always better. Sometimes more air acts like an air conditioner and cools the blocks down and cools the firebox down, and that's not what you want. it's the right amount of air. So keeping this open, that doesn't, that might help a little bit, but it doesn't, overall it doesn't help. And even this is probably too big for an air hole. So you could put something like this in, which is plenty of air on either side. That's way more than a regular wood stove gives a fire. And then you can twist it back and forth to make more or less air, kind of like a lever. But this is the wood's relatively new, and it's oak. It's going to take a while to really get going. So I'm gonna keep the air where it is. See, it's slowed down, and sometimes that's good. If it slows down too much, it'll smoke. But it's not the case. You want it slow enough so the heat transfers into the stove, not so fast everything rushes out of the stove. And also, sometimes if things move too fast with too much draft, you can actually create smoke, because the smoke has no time to be burned up. I guess what I was saying in the last segment is, if you just took this out and left it open, yeah, the fire would kick up a bit, but your barrel temperature might actually go down, because all that cold air is flooding up into the barrel. So if it's kind of counterintuitive to keep the barrel temperature as high as possible. You want the door closed, and you want the proper amount of air, even though if you open this up, the fire will kick up a bit, but it's a trade-off. Fire kicks up a bit, cold air floods in. I'll show you how hot the barrel is. You don't want to fall into it. See how long that takes to dry. And smoke escaping under that ceiling because there's no mortar. What's pretty amazing though is I just have this elbow shoved in there. I don't have any mortar or anything. It's still raging. The fire is still really raging. There's nothing coming out of this, the pipe. It's not that tight. I mean, it's tight, but it's not that tight. If it was tight, it would be a straight up and down. It leans back because it catches on the top. And this is just dryer vent. The galvanization's burned off. You have to burn off the zinc coating can be toxic as it burns off. You got to be careful of that if you use dryer vent or galvanized, which is like a real bright silver stovepipe here. But let's look closely. There's nothing. Now, I don't recommend you don't use mortar, of course. That's not a good idea. If this comes out, we're sort of screwed, but it's pretty amazing. The smoke doesn't want to escape into the cold outside area. It wants to constantly find the warm pipe. I mean, you could probably put a pretty big gap in here. Not that you should do that, I'm just saying. It would still, the gases would still find this pipe. It doesn't want to come out the sides. It wants to find another warm channel.